you ever had to ask someone for money and it feels kind of icky? Well, chances are then it feels icky for the other person too. But I'm here to tell you that it doesn't have to be that way. So I've asked Leslee Lewis to join us today. She's an attorney with Dickinson Wright. I know that she's been asked for gifts that have been quite meaningful because she's a walking commercial for some of the organizations that she cares about. So I wanted her to talk about what is it like when it's done right. And then I've also asked her to tell us what it's like when it's not done right, when it's kind of feeling icky. I'm Joanna Hogan, and this is Inspired Generosity.
Okay, here's a full packet. Plunk it down in front of you, and then start asking about the desire of my organization to sponsor them and at what levels. They look like a timid little rabbit coming into the lion's den or something, like I'm going to eat them alive.
People look at it, oh, you're a professional beggar.
Oh, ouch.
This podcast is sponsored by the Dreams Retreat. Now, this is not ordinary training. Ordinary training is tactical and patchwork at best. To inspire generosity, you need training that is simple, that's sequential, and that's what this is. It's exactly what I wish I would have had when I first got my start. If you'd like to learn more, go to inspire-generosity.com. On this podcast, we're talking about how to inspire generosity so you don't have to do fundraising. To me, fundraising is about money. Inspiring generosity is about inspiring someone to use their resources, whether it's time, money, whatever it is they have to offer, to contribute towards something together with the people who have experience and time to get something accomplished. So when you have giving partners and we're people who are working for nonprofits together, that's different than this needy organization looking for someone to rescue them with their money, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of that is about the dynamics of the relationship. So can you tell me about a time when you felt really deeply moved, you felt deeply connected to a mission? What would be an example of a time when you really felt that they did this right?
Yeah, it's funny because it was baby steps into it. But yeah, definitely Lake Michigan Academy is a really good example of that, as well as Zealand Education Foundation, two organizations where I've been integrally involved. I was president of the board at some point in Lake Michigan Academy. I was on the board for both of them, 10 years apiece. And the reason that I started very small for the first one. I was given an assignment as part of my job to do something for Lake Michigan Academy, small thing for them. And so I was completely detached at that point. No involvement, didn't really understand what they were doing or anything like that. I understood that a colleague of mine had helped start it. That's about all I knew. But they drew me in from there.
How did they do that?
Well, see, I think it becomes, I don't think you've probably heard that saying, like you see something and you kind of know it, but you actually do it or show me and I'll have some sense of it and do it. And then I really understand. And that's sort of what they did. I went in and started getting to know folks. Taking the step from hearing about it to actually experiencing it is a good first step as part of it. And as I started to understand, as they were able to explain what they were doing, that was a good step. I agreed to be part of their board as a result of that. But even then, I wasn't deeply connected initially with their mission. No, absolutely not. Like I didn't have kids who were having any similar learning differences or problems or anything like that. I thought, I love kids groups. This be a good opportunity to learn and make relationships and be a part of something like that. But then they got me on a grant committee. I don't know if you found that to be a good, effective sort of thing, but as a part of that, I was interviewing people for scholarships. And parents were telling me what it took to be able to send their kids. It's a private school for kids who are not making it in regular schools, whether that is private or public, and they need extra help. And they do things a lot differently as a result of that. But the parents were telling me these stories about what impact this had on their family. Like there were people who were making almost nothing, it seemed like, really well below the poverty range, and had 6 kids and were asking everybody they knew for help because the maximum we could give in scholarship was 50%. So they still had to, even if we came up with 50% for them, they still had to come up with the other 50%. I don't know how they could even feed their family, but it was that important to them to send their child to this school. And the reasoning behind it was what they saw in their child. We were having kids who were as young as 3rd grade who thought they were nothing when they came in. How do you look at a child that young and not feel there's so much potential in them, right? And so if they're already, by the time they're, say, 8 years old, they think they're worthless, and this school is doing something about that, do you think what that does to the child, their potential? And then you start to see the impact it has on the family, who was just heartbroken to have sent their child to school, happy-go-lucky, and resulted in a kid who thought they had no worth.
Can you imagine? You wouldn't have known that had you not been right there on the front lines.
No.
It was getting you involved so you could see up close and personal the difference that was being made. You could really experience the mission, right?
I could experience the mission, and I could see how it mattered. And, there were stories. There was a kid who was the oldest of multiple kids in his family, I think 4 or 5 kids in his family. He was working. He was a high school student that came there. He was working outside of school to pay for the electricity bill at home. His parents did not have jobs, and he figured out how to get everybody else to school, get himself on the bus. He had to go from his school to this school for a partial day. And it meant that much to him to be there. When you see people, when you see that kind of impact and when you can experience it,
like
you start to go deeper. Yeah. It's like, oh my gosh. Yeah. Because then you realize, okay, this is changing a kid. But changing a kid changes a family, changes a community, changes his trajectory in life. This kid, the statistics on learning disabilities are horrible. I mean, it's a significant portion of our prison populations that are people with learning disabilities. If you can change that, if you can find the moment in time and make a difference in that, you have just sparked a difference in potentially an entire community. So when you start to see that, you get really involved. And then the next step for me was I actually got on the board of this organization when I was pregnant. And I said, let me wait to attend my first meeting until after I've had the baby. That I was on the board 5 years later, my own kid was diagnosed with learning differences. And they showed up for me during that when I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm not anywhere near the school. I can't. It would be challenging to bring my son there. And they said, let us help you. We'll help you find the right neuropsychologist. We'll help you find the resources. We will give you exercises. We'll give you things that you can feed to the right people. We will be a part of your life, and we'll come alongside you on this. So that is the sort of thing. When you see that, when you get to attend graduations and you hear the parents come up to you and the students come up to you and say, I made it. When I was in first grade, I didn't think I would ever finish high school. Never. I thought I had no future, and here I am, and here's what I'm going to do with my life. And just parents coming up and say thanks. Then you're doing something that's worthwhile. So that's the sort of thing that draws you in. So
that you didn't have a fundraising professional come to you and say, let me tell you a story. You actually got to experience a story. You actually you saw the actual up close and personal the person who was being impacted. Correct?
I did. And the thing is, this school is, like, we call it the little school that can. But this school is so small, they didn't have the money for a separate development person. There was no fundraising person who went out to do that. Their executive director was the one who was doing that sort of thing. Their teachers believed in it so much, or do believe in it. They're still out there doing good work, but they believe in it so much that they go out there and talk about it to people in the community and the like. So, and the board is a working board. They're actually, helping with things along the way as well. It's one of those stories that helps you to know that people who have a passion inspire others to get involved in that passion.
So that's a perfect story of you who have gotten involved and have been able to see the difference, and then now you're a walking commercial for them. Like, I'm sure you tell other people about
I do.
this. What about a time when, I mean, I'm sure in your being an attorney, your firm must get hit up for requests all the time. What was the worst pitch experience you've ever had?
Oh, goodness. There have been quite a few, actually, but the worst are usually when somebody cold calls you. And
Is that still happening?
that still happens. That's a real thing. I get calls, and sometimes there's some very tenuous connection. Like it's just an organization in the community, no connection to me, no connection necessarily to that, but it is in the community. Or maybe they went to the same college I did, so I seem like the appropriate,
You're an alumni.
Right.
You must
I'm
be
another
interested.
alumni. You must be interested in that. There's some very tenuous connection. And so sometimes I will take a meeting. Time is my most valuable commodity. None of us have any more time we can manufacture, right? So it's just a matter of trying to figure out a time. But if I take that sort of a meeting, when the first thing they do is come in, not even really, they might hand you a packet on their organization. And I mean hand you the packet. Here's a full packet, plunk it down in front of you. And then start asking about the desire of my organization to sponsor them and at what levels we would like to sponsor. Or
Maybe they've watched too many pitch competitions and they're thinking it's a pitch.
It's not Shark Tank, but if it was Shark Tank, wouldn't they have like this whole, it'd at least be fun to watch and be entertaining as they describe their product or something like that at the very beginning of it. But no, instead they just plunk the thing down on your desk and ask how much you'll give for it.
How do you respond to that?
I try to be really politic, but the response essentially is we have a limited budget, and our limited budget goes to things that we're involved in, where we have relationships where we've got somebody on the board or somebody who's really actively involved, or something along those lines. And so our budget follows our passions and our activities that people who work for us are involved in.
You know what I hope you'll do next time this happens?
Yeah, tell me.
I hope you'll say to them, because I hope you'll say to them, this approach is really not the right approach. Like, I would be much more likely to consider what you have to say if you didn't put this packet right in front of me. Mm-hmm. Like to almost use it as a teaching moment, because I think what happens is it is awkward and everyone knows it. The person who just did that is probably nervous as all get out that he is like, okay, I wonder what she's going to say. And then you're like, oh gosh, I got to come up with what's the reason. It's not in our budget or,
Right.
But the truth is it was the approach.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe there was an alignment that wasn't there either.
Right.
But I think that's where I want to say the things nobody will say. Like, can we stop doing that? Can we just call out the elephant in the room?
Yeah.
It's kind of like in a board. I don't know if this relates to you, or you can resonate with this, but I find all the time there'll be board meetings, and then afterwards I'll hear the founder or the fundraising professional saying they never give. Those board members, they don't give, and we want them to give. And I'm like, well, did you ask them? Did you? And I don't mean just did you ask them in the moment, but when you asked them if they would consider being on the board, did you let them know what the expectation would be in terms of giving? Have you told them when, how, like, have you discussed it? And a lot of times it's like, no, they should just know, right? There's these unspokens. I would love for everyone to be more honest and just say, you know what? The way that you've presented this to me doesn't feel great. I'm not sure how you might say that, but I feel like these are learning opportunities. What tends to happen, what I see happening is people they're nervous and they need this because their job's pretty measurable. If they don't get a certain number of sponsorships, they're out of a job.
Right.
So they come and they do all the talking, and then they leave and they wonder, well, I wonder what the chances are, instead of going and asking you questions before they give you, it's like, again, if you have no idea, then you just don't know them well enough and shouldn't be asking them yet in the first place.
Right.
But do you think it's possible to be a little more, make that more of a teaching moment, a little more honest? I'm not saying you were dishonest.
Yeah,
I'm just saying,
no. Yeah, I get it. Yes. At the same time, when it's a business versus you personally, you're trying to be very diplomatic about how you, and I feel bad for them sometimes too, because they look like a timid little rabbit coming into the lion's den or something, like I'm going to eat them alive. So I feel bad for them. I've been in that situation before. So I do feel bad for them. So I want to be as diplomatic as possible with them. But you're right. It's an opportunity to learn, because maybe we weren't the right organization to start with. Maybe it wasn't a good match to start with. But usually if I've actually met with you, there's a reason. There was some kernel of something that I wanted to at least show respect and diplomacy to you, or hear about it. Maybe I'm actually interested in the opportunity, but not quite the way you've listed it out. Or that is dependent partly on me, I'm going to say, because if you're giving me an opportunity and I'm actually interested in the organization, but not in that opportunity, that's a chance for me to say, that doesn't meet our needs, but here are our needs. As part of our contribution, these are the things that we value in return for that, or we're looking for our organization to look good in the community. We're looking for, publicity from it, or we're looking for whatever we are looking for in the midst of that.
But you're not in a dialogue.
No.
Right?
So no, because these are the 5 opportunities. That's the problem. Like the 5 opportunities oftentimes aren't anything that's relevant. Or, help us with the capital to build X, Y, Z, and we want $100,000 or whatever from you. A lot of businesses are not into capital campaigns. They're, it's not necessarily going to be the thing that, and they didn't ask.
You know how you said you felt sorry for them?
Yeah.
When I tell people, or when I used to tell people I was a professional fundraiser, they felt sorry for me.
Yeah.
They look at me like, ooh, I would never want that job. I hate asking people for money. That's typically what people would say. They feel sorry for me that I have a job where I have to ask people for money. And I would say for years, I would just try to educate people and say, well, if that's what it was about, I'd hate it too. Trust me, I wouldn't. It's not about that. It's not about the money. It's about what we can accomplish with the money. And I do it differently, but people just, it's like fundraising has a bad reputation. And there is this feeling of like, oh, I wouldn't want to have that job. But the truth is, especially when you're inspiring generosity, there is no better job. I mean, I got the opportunity to meet with the most fascinating people, help them use their money to do something really meaningful.
Yeah.
To the point where they would thank me with tears in their eyes for the opportunity to do this, because it was so meaningful. Like, that's an amazing job.
That is.
I mean, it's an amazing job. I love what I do. Yet people look at it based on their experience, because in their experience, it doesn't work that way. And they see it as, oh, you're a professional beggar.
Oh, ouch. Yeah. That's so harsh.
It is harsh.
You remember how much fun we had, though, doing the video for Porter Hills? Like, that was meaningful to me. I remember it to this day because it was an opportunity for me to talk about how much good that organization was doing. It was an opportunity for Porter Hills to talk about how it trusted my organization, things like that. It was fun. It was an opportunity that was enjoyable. And
it's how it should be.
Right, yeah. And then I got to feel like I was a part of the mission. When you're inviting people to be a part of something that they care about, a mission they care, I mean, elders were important in my life growing up. This is the kernel that maybe you didn't even know at the time. But I had really good relationships as a very small child with elderly people in my community, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, my 2 great uncles lived across the street with my, another family member, all of these people, and they always felt like they were around me and helping. They were making sure I was safe and valued and loved and part of that. So throughout my life, I've taken opportunities to be involved in like the geriatric ward when I candy striped and things like that. That connects the dots all the way to working with Porter Hills and the joy that I take in being able to be a part of their mission. When you offer me the opportunity, I think, oh, like my grandma. I would want people who are good around her and taking good care of her. I think that sort of thing. And I listen to people who talk about their experience with their mom there, or their dad there, or that sort of thing, or talking to residents there. And it's beautiful, really, when you have that kernel of it. When you have, like with Lake Michigan Academy or Zealand Education Foundation, when you've given me an ability to say, whether with my time or my money, thank you. Thank you for letting me be a small part of this beautiful thing you're doing that is meaningful to me. Isn't that a wonderful job that you have then?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. What about personally? So you've got friends who are being asked also, and when you're asked to open up your contacts and ask other people that you know. I mean, are you involved in personal campaigns as well?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
Yep. And I have been for most of my career. This is a very giving community. Early on, I joined boards and committees and things like that. And that's where I got probably my first training in the method that you would not probably encourage. And I've had that repeated training from people over the years as I've served on boards or committees of how to make the ask, right?
So you've been trained how to, like, you've been taught.
With a script and things like that. I don't know if you've ever seen those, but I remember distinctly the first time I got it because it felt so repugnant. Yeah, I don't know how to say it besides it felt kind of icky in the midst of it to be being asked to kind of read from a script and ask people, some of whom you knew, some of whom you didn't know, to sort of read from a script and you say this, and then after we always start with like, write down your entire contact list, everybody you know that you would, or look at my list and, check off the people you know. Right. That's, usually step one. And then here's the thing where you will write them a letter with us, and then maybe you'll go along with something, or maybe you'll just introduce us so we can make a pitch or things like that. Yeah. Come up with 5 friends you can ask for money on, things like this. I keep in mind at the time, like I was barely making payments on my student loans for, I didn't have a lot of money. So like looking to people to ask was hard enough. And then from there, just saying,
can we make it any more awkward?
Yeah, I know, right? That's what I was thinking. Like, this is so hard. What did I sign up for?
Right. And what amazes me is there's a lot of classes on how to make an ask, or there's books on how to make an ask. And people tend to think that if they learn the right words, or if they say it the right way, like, my problem is I'm not quite sure how to make the ask. And it's really when you inspire generosity and you to really make sure that it's, I guess what I want to say is that when you create the conditions and you are genuinely talking, first of all, talking to the right person, like you said, talking to someone who's in a position to make a gift of the size that they're looking for.
Right.
And you're talking to someone who genuinely already has an interest and has a relationship. And you build that awareness and that involvement, and then you get time to, quote, make an ask. A lot of times you don't even have to, because the person is so ready that they just offer before you would even have a chance to ask. And even the word ask, I like to replace that with the word invite. Because my experience though, I will say I'm talking now as if I like to do it. I do it differently now, but when I was new, I didn't know any differently.
Right.
Making an ask is a performance. It's a transaction.
Right.
Inviting someone to participate in something that's going to actually benefit them just as much as it is yourself or your organization is completely different. And it's not complex. It's actually quite simple. But it's hard for people to get around. I think it's tradition. I think it's been done this way for so long. What do you think? Why do you think people continue to do this?
I don't honestly know, because it doesn't, you're right, it doesn't make sense. And even there were some pretty senior people there who do huge campaigns for communities and things like that as part of it. I'm kind of surprised they didn't stop the conversation there and say, that's not really how I do it when I go out there and do it. You had mentioned to me before, like, our website calls me a transactional attorney, but I don't think of it that way because we don't think in transactions. That just means I'm not in courtrooms all the time. But
Right.
what I'm doing, the thing that makes my job enjoyable, is I'm having relationships with clients. Boy, that sounds bad. Go back up on that. I am
You're
building
in relationship.
I'm building relationships with people where I ask them, how can I help? How can I help you through what you're going through right now? It is, and they are long-term relationships that I have with clients because that is the approach is, you have a problem. How can I help? And I think it's sort of the same thing. You're inviting people, you're showing people here is the kernel of what we're doing that's important. And they're maybe having the opportunity to say, how can I help?
You know what I think the difference is it's about money. I think it gets weird because it's about money. Because otherwise, this wouldn't be so complicated. But the fact money is one of those things we don't talk about very often.
Yeah.
Many of us have, issues around money, or we have a scarcity mindset, or I think I've even, we come across people who have quite a bit of capacity, but they're afraid they don't have enough. So no matter how much they have, they might feel like they just don't have enough to give. And yet there's plenty to give, right? And you have other people who don't have much, and they make a stretch gift, which is incredibly inspiring. But a lot of it comes back to how they were raised or how they feel about money. And asking someone for money, if you weren't even talked to about money as a kid, it wasn't something I don't know about you, but my parents never said, let me tell you how much I make.
Right.
Let me show you my budget. Like, money's just like money, sex, and religion. We're not supposed to talk about those things. So I think that's part of it, don't you? I mean, what do you think? What do you think else? What else could be why we make this so awkward?
Yeah, I think it is because it feels like about money. But that's the funny thing about it. Like, even if you're buying a good or service, so you're buying my services as an attorney if you hire me, right?
Yeah.
It's about money. I'm getting money for that. There's a monetary transaction going on. Right. If you're buying, your jacket or something, there's a monetary transaction going on in so many things. So what makes this one so different? I don't know. I think it's interesting how people's views of money evolve over time, though. I think already, but I'll share here that in 2016, I was in a really bad car accident where I was sitting in a hospital gown in the hospital going, am I getting out of here? I think that depending on where you are in your life, you may have different views on money. At that point, that's when, for me, it crystallized.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing that I have, no money that I have, nothing that I have matters. What matters is the relationships that I have with people. All I was worried about was the people. I was, when you're sitting there in a hospital gown, you got none of your other stuff around you. Where you live didn't matter. Right. What you have doesn't matter. You're just trying to survive as part of that sort of an experience. And so what I realized really crystal clear is that the only value of the money is the experiences that it buys for the people and for you in your life. Mm-hmm. Like the relationships, the good that you can do with it for people you care about or for causes that you care about.
Yeah. It was a defining moment for you.
It was a defining moment for me. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I guess everybody's going to have a different view of that. But when you start to have that view of the money, you start to think, how can I use this in ways for good? Whatever I've been blessed with.
Sometimes people will say, I don't know how much to ask for. Like, how do you know how much to ask someone for? And I always say, well, if you don't know, then you don't know them well enough.
Right.
Because part of knowing how much to ask for is getting a sense for, well, what do they support and in what range and what do they feel comfortable with? And has anyone ever asked you for a gift that was just a ridiculous amount?
Yes. Yeah, both from the business and from me personally. That was completely, and it was, I think the problem with it was partly the disconnect between our relationship and the amount they were asking for, too. There was no relationship ahead of time. I think here's a good example of that, actually. I don't know if this person was trained by you in advance, but I recently had somebody who came to me and said, I don't have any agenda. I just wanted to get to know you. I want to hear what's important to you. Tell me about yourself. Tell me about your family. Tell me about.
Wasn't that refreshing?
Oh my goodness! Because we're not robots. We carry with us all the things that are important to us in our lives, whatever that is, what the key experiences that make us who we are. And for somebody to first care about that, not just how can I get you to give me money, it's just a refreshing difference. And for it not to be about the first thing, not to be about the ask, too, is it's just refreshing. And I just found myself sitting back more in my chair and just having a real conversation, which goes back to that relationship piece, really, right?
It does. And that sounds like that person realized that if they can find out what you want to accomplish, what's important to you, and that aligns with what they're doing, then maybe it makes sense to eventually start talking about that. But if they discover by talking with you that what you're interested really doesn't align at all with what they're coming for, they don't even have to waste anyone's time. It's like, let me find out by talking to you, what do you care about? What do you want to accomplish with your money or your sponsorship dollars that are meaningful to you?
Right.
You can't find that out if you just go and spend the whole time talking about your organization. You can only find that out if you ask discovery questions.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's critical, I think. There was a really good piece of advice I got as a young lawyer that was similar sort of thing that I'm just going to make the analogy, and you can cut it if you want to, but it's better to, if you find a client who seems inappropriate to you, it's better to decline the engagement and go on and let them find somebody who's appropriate for them, rather than to make yourself miserable, make them miserable, and launch an unhappy client into the world, right? Same thing here. Like, it's better for us to just have the conversation. See, is this a good relationship? Is there a spark of something that's important to both of us? And if not, no, we spent a little time together. It was great to get to know you. I then know more about your organization and about you. A number of the fundraising and development sort of people that I have worked with over the years. Sorry, I know those are probably not the terms you'd want to use for it, but a number of them have gone on to other organizations and have continued to have relationships from those organizations with me. So over multiple organizations. So it's still useful to have spent the time together.
So now, because you are really comfortable in these relationships and you understand fundraising, how it can be, you've experienced it both ways, awkward and as well as very natural and inspiring. So do you feel well equipped to help an organization raise money now? Or do you feel like, gosh, there's some things that nobody's helping me with, or this is really hard still? What is still hard about it for you?
Oh, that's a good question. So I feel way more comfortable now, I think, than I ever did before. But that is because I'm more comfortable, I think, in my own skin than I was at some point. You can tell me that that's how I'm supposed to do it any number of times, and I still won't be doing it that way, right? I'm now, when I was young, it was, ask your 5 friends who also work for a business that can give them some money that they can throw at it, and we just trade contributions, right? I'll give to Ronald McDonald House, you'll give to Lake Michigan Academy, that sort of thing. Now, I really think hard about who is a good fit for it and who is interested in it, and go about it, I think, a different way. But I always want to learn more. Like, I'm really interested in your stuff because I'm always feel like a learner in these sorts of things. And sometimes I just want to connect people together and see where it goes from there. And sometimes I really should be the one to talk to them, because I know that they and I working together could be a fabulous team and could do something important for the organization.
But what happens sometimes when, say, there's you're on a board and a fundraising professional says, "Who do you know, Leslie, that I could talk to? Give me some names." Are you feeling like, okay, I'll give them some of my names, or how does that feel to you?
Yeah, well, that never feels good, because
But that
oftentimes
happens, right?
it does. Yeah. Okay. They'll say, "Give me the names or send an email introduction, and I'll go sit with them." How does that make any sense? Is what I always think, right? Because I'm the one who has the relationship with them. Maybe we should all meet together at some point. Maybe I should talk to them. But certainly, if I'm the one that has the relationship, maybe we should gauge that as a portion of it, it seems like.
What drives you crazy about nonprofits who are trying to raise money and they're reaching out to you? What are some pet peeves?
So pet peeves for both me and my husband are when you've given a gift and you feel so hopeful about it, you're inspired by the organization, you feel so helpful about how they're going to use the gift, and they use the gift to repeatedly send you stuff. So they may have used the entire amount that you gave them in postage to just hound you day after day, send email after email, daily emails. Everything is important. It's, at this moment in time, we need your gift today, day after day after day. It can't be that bad every single day, and every dollar probably shouldn't be wasted on postage. That's actually the quickest way to get cut off my husband's list of organizations to donate to. So
Emergency fundraising is never a good idea. It's not typically very inspiring, wouldn't you say?
I would agree. And if there
appeals.
truly is an emergency, I want to know that. But every day probably is not an emergency.
Right.
Then it feels false, and it just doesn't. It doesn't inspire confidence in the organization. If you actually are used to working with organizations, to think, wow, is every day an emergency? If so, is this organization going to survive?
So what about thanking you? So that you don't appreciate it when they thank you with an ask. They thank you and then ask for more money immediately. Sometimes they'll give a thank you note with an envelope inside of it in case you want to give again right now.
Right.
I'm curious, has anyone done a really, really good job of thanking you in a way that makes you go, wow, I feel cherished. I feel like they really appreciate me.
Yeah. The funny thing is I don't like much in the way of public thanks. I'm kind of a introvert, and that usually isn't something that I love, and that's going to be different for everybody, right?
That's right.
But so I don't like that piece of it. But one thing that Zealand Education Foundation did is the without naming my name, without anything like that, the superintendent got up and was talking about what's happened in terms of their reading programs and all the progress they'd made, and talked about someone out there, a little girl and her mom, that inspired her in a room where I was, and talked about how that had made a difference. And that was what mattered the most. If you think
They showed you the impact.
Yeah, I didn't need an award. I didn't need any big thank you card. I definitely didn't need some. I wanted to know it made a difference. What I was doing made a difference, and that in a little wink, that I knew that it was valuable. It had made some sort of a difference, and that sort of thing is probably not something you can do in all cases, but it certainly is something you can do in some cases.
Yeah. So what do you wish every fundraiser knew about meaningful relationships?
It's a good question. Yeah, I think meaningful relationships are relationships that are authentic, where each person feels seen, where they feel respected and cared about, where their interests matter in it. I think meaningful relationships in fundraising are just plain meaningful relationships. They take us being people with each other, and that takes things like, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, faithfulness, self-control, things like that. It takes just thinking of people as people and thinking of it as a long-term relationship, I think.
Well said. Listening and asking good questions.
And asking
right?
good questions.
Right. How does somebody come to you when they don't know you at all? What's the best way for them to approach you?
Hopefully we've met through a friend, or sometimes we may have met at an event or something like that, just out in the community. I think from my standpoint, must be present to win, right? The more you're out with people, the more you have the opportunity to talk with people and get to know them and things like that. I had one that's maybe an off sort of chance, but it was a fundraising professional who worked with the Alzheimer's Association, and she was talking about how excited she was about what they were doing, the research that was going on, and how she was making that possible, and an event that they were having. And I said, you don't know who you're standing next to. It's been generations of my family, including my grandmother, who have had Alzheimer's. I've watched that. I've watched that in my grandfather, I've watched that in my grandmother, I've watched that in my aunt. How can I help? Please plug me in.
Wow.
Right? But that's probably the rare instance, right? You're not getting everybody like that. But having been out in the community, there are some opportunities there beyond your own connections that you might have gotten through a board or other relationships. But usually people are approaching me because they have a relationship with me.
You're more likely to take the meeting if I were to come to you and say, Dave said that I should talk to you, or Dave knows that this is something that would interest you, or Dave suggested I reach out to you, right? If Dave's a friend of yours, having an endorsement, having someone, I mean, what's the best way to get introduced to you? Is it through an email? Is it through come have lunch? What's been the best way? Maybe the worst way?
Yeah, probably a referral would be the best way from a friend who actually knows that I've got an interest in that. Because once again, it's just a matter of us having some alignment in what we care about between your organization and either my organization or me. That is the key thing. So yeah, probably better if it's through a friend or somebody who knows something.
Is it okay if it's an email?
It is, but again, you're probably going to have a better shot at it if it was through an email from my friend who said, I've got this great organization, or I'd like you to meet so-and-so, or things like that, rather than the fundraising professional being the one to just reach out and kind of cold call for that. On the worst sort of thing you're talking about, the worst is just being essentially a telemarketer to me, where you just will not let it go when I've kindly said, this doesn't align with our needs, or this won't work for us, or something fairly kind about, not having time for this, and you just won't let it go and just keep sending things over and over and over to me on it, and then I'm going to block you.
I'm so grateful for our relationship, because our relationship is genuine and authentic. And that's why I was like, I want to talk to Leslee. I want her to speak into this. I was someone who came to you and said, I don't know exactly what I said, but I came to you because I worked for an organization that needed, I think it was for Porter Hills. I think it was for the anniversary. And I know what it was. I wanted you to be like the title sponsor of it. But what I didn't want was to just say, would you be our sponsor for this much? I wanted to co-create benefits. How could we work together so that what you gave blessed you as much as it blessed us?
Yeah.
So I was asking you, what is Dickinson Wright law firm, what are they trying to accomplish with their sponsorship dollars? If we made you a sponsor, how could we acknowledge that in a way that helps you do more business, makes the event more interesting or better for our attendees, and generates the revenue that Porter Hills needs? If I remember right, you and I worked on a video so that it wasn't just acknowledging your company as a sponsor, but you talked in that, you had only a couple people got the video, the sponsors at the top level, but you spoke in that video about your relationship with Porter Hills. And that was a way for people to say, oh, I get it. I know why Dickinson Wright sponsored Porter Hills. They've been in relationship for all this time. And you shared some stories. And we were able to highlight your company as a sponsor, but we highlighted the relationship. We didn't highlight you paid $25,000 or whatever it was, for that gold sponsorship.
Right.
It was really more about how can we genuinely make this a relationship that we can show people, but it's genuine. It's the real deal.
I loved that. You did a great job of that because you asked, what is it that you value, or something along those lines? Like, what is it that you value as you think about this, as you're considering this? And so we talked through and brainstormed what would be helpful. And really what I wanted to do, because I believe in the organization and I know they make such good decisions and they're doing so many good things for elders, I really wanted to be able to highlight them as part of it, for it to be something that they could use too, for other people to understand how important what they're doing is, really. So yeah, it was definitely a win-win, I think, in terms of that. Yeah.
Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for taking time to talk this through. I know that people who are listening, especially those who have that responsibility of raising money, whether they're a fundraising professional or they're a board member, I bet there's a few takeaways that they got from this.
I hope so. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. I was really honored to be a part of this with you, Julie.
I'm Joanna Hogan, and this is Inspire Generosity. If this episode meant something to you, please like and subscribe and stay tuned for the next episode.